Hello, everyone. It's great to see you. Thanks for joining us at the Brighteye Edtech Startup Festival Day 3. It's the final day. We've had a great week so far and are now excited about our first of 2 events today. To talk about funding and fundraising, we are pleased to be joined by 2 inspiring founders, Nico from our portfolio company Shakers, in conversation with Brighteye principal David Guérin, and Anders Rapp of Keenious in conversation with partner Helen Agering at their lead investor Spintop Ventures. My name is Hege, and I am head of community at Brighteye, where I spend my time working with our portfolio companies and the wider ecosystem in Europe, including doing events like this. If you're new to Brighteye, we're the most active early-stage tech-focused venture capital fund in Europe, with 150 million euros under management across 2 funds. We invest in seed and Series A stage companies that help people learn and grow across Europe. So what better to talk about than funding? We have 2 founder and investor conversations, and we'll have time for questions for all speakers after and during. So please keep them coming in the chat, and we'll try and pick up as much as we can. But first up, without further ado, I am very happy to introduce David and Nico. The floor is yours.
Hello, hi everyone. Welcome, Nico. Great to see everyone here. Thank you so much for joining and tuning in today. So I'm David, and I run the Paris office for Brighteye. I will let Nico introduce himself, obviously, but Nico is the co-founder, is COO of Shakers, and he's joining us today from Madrid. We're very grateful to have you join us. Quick disclaimer, and very important disclaimer here, which is that Brighteye is an investor in Shakers. We're very lucky. So I'm 100% biased here, but you know what? I'll try my best to be neutral as much as I can. But I'm excited for this session because this is one of my favorite topics. I love spending time on that topic with our founders. And we have actually created a free email fundraising course that is for Edtech founders that is called Merci VC or mercyvc.com. You can sign up for free. A bit of marketing now. It's powered by Brighteye. Completely free, 3 days, and so on. Anyway, I'll stop now. I just want to share one last thing. The session, really briefly, with Nico. We're going to have like a conversation, a few questions for 10, 15 minutes. We love questions, so please interrupt us. Feel free to raise your hand, ask questions, Q&A. Then we can literally block time and do 10 minutes of Q&A. But yeah, this is the agenda today, and don't be shy. That's it. Anyway, Nico, please go ahead and introduce yourself. We'd love to learn more about you.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm excited as well because I didn't get to speak that much to David over the summer. We typically have a constant channel of communication with the Brighteye team, which is great. But I think that we all try to keep away from each other during the summertime a little bit, to pretend that we were all resting and disconnecting, which didn't necessarily happen, but at least we tried. So yeah, it's great. So I'm Nico. I'm from Madrid, one of the 4 co-founders at Shakers. I think this is something that is relevant, and we will deep dive during the conversation when it comes to fundraising, based on the way in which we split things internally at Shakers, and the fact that we have like several co-founders that can somehow decide whether like you spend more time on fundraising, the business, both, and these kind of things, right? So I think that it was definitely one of the special things that we have at this particular project. Before Shakers, which is something that we launched back in 2021, I was the CEO of another startup in the mobility space for 4 years, also raised some capital. I also spent some time in corporate, but a few years at Rocket Internet in Berlin, doing anything from launching new markets to scaling them and M&A and whatnot. So I've been doing this for a while, right? So some of these things that I'm gonna share, I mean, all of them are based on my personal experience, right? So I think that this is really important. I never feel confident like sharing tips based on thinking. It's all based on my personal experience, and then you can take whatever from that. But obviously, it's difficult to make a recipe and just to make it a standard, right? And say like, oh, you need to do it this way. Like this is what worked for us, and also what didn't work for us in the past, because previous company crashed and I had to go through a bankruptcy process in 14 markets, right? So it's not all lights and bright, but yeah, things are going well this time. So happy to share that. Sorry for the long intro, but I wanted to give you some context.
That's perfect. Thanks so much, Nico. Again, guys, raise your hand if you have questions, or please, or just share them in the chat. But look, I have a few questions, obviously. One and a half is exactly what you mentioned, which is like you have 4 co-founders, right? So how do you divide this responsibility of running the process? Yeah, I would be curious to understand a bit more the rationale behind it. And I know that obviously because we lived one process with you, but perhaps this could be interesting from for some of the founders in the audience here.
Sure. So I think that one of the fun things is that for us is never set in stone, and the way we do this, not particularly to fundraising, but for everything, we kind of sit down every 4 or 5 months, and we kind of look at like all the strategic initiatives that we have ahead, and based on a number of things, right? Obviously, previous experience, like the knowledge that you may have about that particular topic, but also like how you feeling at a personal level, like and like how much team do you have at the moment, how many people are you managing, and like the time available. Somehow we sort of split everything, right? From spending more time developing stuff within AI to spending time doing business development and selling and going to meet clients to spending time doing business plan and or hiring, right? And like between the 4 of us, we sort of split this. We always have like some anchors. So for example, Adri, which is our CPO, like he's an engineer, right? And like he has been doing like the job of a CTO and
that's
and
true,
CTO
man.
as well.
We talked to Adri. This is the very last co-founder that we met, actually.
Exactly. And like this guy, like he's always like on the product side of things, right? And when it comes to investors, he would eventually come at the very end. Also because like he has a really good like wow effect. So when people are kind of getting what we do, like we bring him in and then he shows the magic, right? But we sort of split this every now and then. And for the past couple of rounds, what we did is that Hector, which is who is the CEO, and myself, we decided to spend more time on the fundraising bit. We love doing this as a pair because, first of all, like you guys, if you're funders or if you spend time like dealing with fundraising, you know that it's a little bit of a lonely process. You get a lot of no's and there's a lot of rejection involved. So having someone standing by your side, kind of going through the same things that you're going, like in terms of the conversation, like the feeling of thinking that a meeting went great and the guy was smiling, and then eventually you get like a CT email saying like, oh, unfortunately we have decided to pass on, and you're like, what happened? Like I thought that the guy was in love with the project, right? So having someone that is going through the same things for us is super helpful because it helps us stop like preventing us from believing that we're crazy, right? And like having these delusional ideas sometimes when you think that things are going different than the way that they're going in practice. But it was also super helpful to have Adri and Jaime, particularly for the seed round, fully focused on the business, right? And spending a lot of time with the team, because the way that we do fundraising, and that's evolving a little bit right now, but like the way that we did it for the previous round was super intense, right? Like we really wanted to meet a lot of people. We had a lot of conversations. We tried to spend as much time as possible with every single VC, really trying to get to meet them. We love taking VCs for lunch or dinner and like spending time with them over food. Like this is the way we do it, right? Because eventually you're gonna be spending so much time with these guys that you want to meet them and know them in a different context than a Zoom call or like a business meeting, right? And I think that this is important as well, but that's super time consuming. And if you want to do it that way and you want to have like a extend pipeline, then you need to put in the hours. And if you're putting the hours talking to VCs, you're not putting them talking to customers or talking to your own team, right? So you need someone that is somehow doing the backup there. But I think that it also depends on like how much how much do you want to concentrate the process in a particular time frame, right? Like if you're doing this over time, which is what we're doing right now for Series A, it's much easier to do both, right? To stay in the business, to stay with the team, and then from time to time put in the hours to talk to VCs. And this is definitely way less stressful, but you need to have the money in the bank, right? if everyone knows that cash is king, and like if you don't have that much runway, then you need to decide what to do. But
this is interesting. It's actually a question for you about how you're currently preparing for your upcoming series, and of course how comfortable you're sharing what you're doing, because I think you're doing a great job. But the key takeaway of what you said, and something that was that surprised me when we met each other during the process and so on, is that you guys were not automatically presenting a deck. You really wanted to focus on the story and actually build a relationship, as you said. And I remember like when a call with Hector, hey, do you want to share a deck for Alex and Ben and whatever? He said, no, it's fine. We're gonna talk. We're gonna send the deck later. You can read it. So anyway, so that was an interesting approach to me, and I think that of course you shared the deck, but you haven't. I don't even recall you pitching a proper deck to me. So that was just wanted to share that, because I think that's interesting, and to strengthen your point on you wanted to spend time with us, building the relationship, picking the right one. And actually this is the question that comes to mind, which is like, how do you pick investors that you want to work with? Of course, you were in a privileged position to be able to pick and choose. But what were the main elements for you?
So I mean, like just to touch upon the deck part, we actually hate it. Like when we need to present a deck, and when like the person in front of us is like, "Can you show your screen?" We're like, this is going to be a really boring conversation. Like, we don't like it at all. Because I think that we feel that it sort of like kills the natural process of having a conversation and sharing the business, right? Like I mean, like we tend to say the same things when we're pitching, but to be honest, like we always take it from a different approach, particularly if you're pitching like to a good number of VCs and you're always having the same conversation. Like it's really difficult to feel engaged with the conversation if you're just like repeating the same things over and over, and you have like your own jokes that you're using and whatnot. Like, I mean, you have a little bit of that, but like over a deck, like we just felt that like we were completely losing the flow. So what we like to do is to share the story, discuss obviously about the business and what we're doing, and then share the deck afterwards, so people can spend as much time as they want looking at slides. And then like if they want to come up with follow-up questions, we'll be happy to answer those, right? So I mean, that's our approach. I don't know if it's good or bad, but that's what we do. And then when it comes to picking investors, I mean, we did learn a lot of things last year, or over the past couple of years in particular. I think that at the beginning we were kind of like going after lists and like really trying to understand like who were the investors that were the most active in our region, and the ones that like people would know about. But we got a lot of frustrating conversations out of talking to people that were looking at investing in SaaS. We're a marketplace, we're a B2B marketplace. And for us, that was a game changer, right? Like the moment where we realized that it didn't make any sense for us to go after people that only love B2B SaaS businesses was great, because they were always talking about metrics that we weren't looking at. It wasn't natural for us to discuss these things. Like we didn't really care about those. So the conversation was a little bit choppy, and like it didn't really flow as we wanted. And then eventually we started to talk to people that were like marketplace believers, and then we were like, wow, this is amazing, right? Like they're talking about the same things, like they care about the stuff that we're spending all our energy on, And then suddenly we made the connection, and we were like, okay, maybe it's because of the business model, right? And then we started to curate investors and conversations a little bit more based on the business model. That was something that helped us a lot as well. Also, I mean, and in particular with you guys, right? Like we definitely felt that, but we operate in a future of work / HR tech sort of vertical. And when you talk to generalists, like HR, they usually like it, and it's great in that sense. But sometimes, like if they're looking at other stuff, like they don't get it, right? And you need to be pushing for freelancing and like on-demand talent and all the things that we do. But then when you suddenly talk to someone that has already looked at the space, and then all that conversation doesn't need to happen, and you're just focusing on the things that you are doing, not just like the macro level, that's something that we always appreciate as well, right? Because we can spend all the time on like our particular approach, our vision, and the things that we're trying to do differently, not just convincing people that the way that talent and companies are connecting to each other hasn't changed in the past like 50 years, and now there's another way, right? So I would say that business model and vertical, definitely something that you need to keep in mind. And sometimes it's a pity, right? Because you see a logo that you liked a lot, or like you have like really good referrals, and someone told you that this VC in particular was great, but then you see that like there's no fit, right? Because they don't care about what like the kind of space that you have decided to operate in, and you just need to back off and like move on to the people that actually care about what you're doing.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thanks so much, guys. Again, questions. I have questions. I can keep going. I love to talk and ask questions. So just feel free to interrupt. But are you comfortable, Nico, sharing a bit more about your upcoming Series A and how you're preparing here?
So I think that
feel free to say no. If not, we can move to the next question, because I know it's a tricky question. So
no, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, I think that it was almost like more natural to us than see it, just because we spent so much time talking to investors for the previous one, that we started building some relationships that are proving really useful now that we're looking at the next funding round, right? So there is people that we've been talking to for 2 years. So everything that we were discussing before about like getting to know these people at the personal level, we're definitely getting there, right? And we're starting to know like their pet's name and like knowing like what they like in terms of food, and like where do they go on holiday, which is great, because then like the moment where we decide to kind of like push the trigger and like start talking about like the actual terms of the round, like the trust is already there. We know each other, and it's like super easy to have that conversation. And also it allows you to share some high level of reporting with them from time to time, so they stay engaged and like you are top of mind for them, and then they remember that you are there and you're growing, and actually that you're doing what you said that you were going to be doing, right? Which is super helpful. Like if you're good at keeping your metrics on track, and like when you forecast you actually manage to deliver over time, that's amazing, right? Like if you told someone back in 2022 that you were gonna be doing something similar to what we are doing right now in 2024, like I mean the amount of credibility that you have is something that cannot be compared with someone that is just telling you, oh, in 2026 I'm gonna be doing this. Well, but there's no track record. Like how can you prove that, right? So that's something that is super helpful. We are a little bit hyperactive, right? So it's feeling a little bit long, right? Like waiting for Series A, in the sense that we want to do a good round, and we're really letting the business getting to the next level in terms of metrics, but also in terms of maturity of the team, and like consolidating what we're doing right now in Spain, which is our main market, that we have already started to do some stuff at the international level. And I think that like also when it comes to preparing, like is as much as you need to allow investors to ask you a lot of questions, ask questions back in terms of understanding which are the metrics that they would like to see in the future. Try to come up with a benchmark of the things that they feel that are the right targets and the right numbers, and make sure that you write them down and like you keep this in an organized way. So when it comes to the next conversation with them, which is maybe like 3 months or 6 months later, you can bring these things up and like actually show them metrics which relate to what they asked you to be looking at, right? And then you, first time that you talk to them, maybe you didn't have anything for that particular metric because you weren't even looking at it. And then suddenly 3 months later, you come and you say like, wow, this is already at like 85%. I mean, they're going to be really impressed, right? And then last thing I would say is that we go to a lot of events, right? Like we really like meeting people face to face. This is expensive and it's time consuming, but we like it, right? Like we always try to be at like the right events, first at the local level and then at the European level, because it's a really good opportunity to meet people in a less formal environment, I would say, right? So there is always beer around, like it's easy to just like have an informal chat. You see if the connection is there for like 10, 15 minutes of chit chat. And then if that first connection is there, you can schedule a call and usually it's going to go well, right? Because you have already established some rapport to that person and it usually flows a little bit more than if you're just having like an initial call that you schedule over email after doing some call emailing. Right?
And I know that you're doing an outstanding job at that, but you're spending quite a bit of time building and maintaining these relationships. And honestly, again, I think you're doing a pretty impressive job on that front. How long does it take you to do that usually? Is it like, I know it's hard to measure and perhaps to even give concrete answer here, but like, is it, a few hours per month, per week?
I would say that I spend a good 2 hours per week.
With VCs, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Between doing research, having like follow-up calls with them. If you see like that there was like a nice article written about what you're doing, you send it to them, like talking to them like over LinkedIn, like they post something which relates to them, and like you comment like at the end of the week, it's like a couple of weeks for a couple of hours for sure. Obviously, it gets much more intense when it comes closer to the actual round, but yeah, I would say so.
Okay, look, we have a question. That's great. People are a bit shy while it's the morning. That's why. So, what are the most useful events for investors in Europe?
Sure. I mean, like, I would say that like one of the top ones is Slash in Helsinki. That's a good one because first of all, it didn't take place yet this year, so you still have the opportunity to go. That's in Helsinki at the end of November. Their motto is like founders focus, so they really have a good ratio of founders to VCs. So a lot of investors from all over will be there. There's a lot of interesting keynotes and talks and whatnot. Last year we were part of they have a startup competition, which they call Slash 100, and they kind of like pick 100 startups that are pre-seed, I would say. And there's a competition, there's pitching and whatnot. So like it's a good event to meet a lot of people, and there's a lot of party involved as well in the evenings. So that's a good one. Then particularly if you're based around Southern Europe, like South Summit in June, it's great. That one takes place in Madrid. It's been going on for 13 years now. And yeah, like it's getting like a bigger international focus, I would say. Everything takes place in English, although it's in Madrid, and that's a great one as well. We're now going to Bits and Pretzels in Munich, which is particularly strong for startups based out of Germany. I would say that one is a little bit more focused for scale-ups or startups that have been going on for a little bit. Those are like three that are really good. Then there is always Web Summit, but to be honest, I think that's a little bit too big. That is usually in Lisbon in November as well. I mean, it depends. You need to prepare them really well, right? but I would say that those are the top four.
I agree.
So-
Slush and South Summit for me are the best ones to answer the questions. And yeah, but it's a lot of work on both sides, to be fair, right?
Sure.
So it's towards it. Hege, do you have one more minute so I can ask just a wrap? Yeah, one last question to Nico, unless you guys have a burning question that you apparently you don't, but okay, I'll go for it.
David, just one. You can ask questions, and then we'll bring you all back at the end. So then Nico and you can also get questions after the next conversation.
Okay, great. So one last question. Nico, in hindsight for your seed round, I mean your pre-seed and seed rounds, so you raised these two rounds. What would you do differently that you are actually going to do differently for your upcoming Series A? Is there something that you did and said, hey, it worked, but you know what, we could optimize in this way or that way, and we're going to do that differently for the Series A and future rounds?
I think that for the previous one, we waited a bit too long. I mean, and everything like kind of like took place in like 3 months, right? Which were crazy. And like it was like really intense, and there was a lot of tension for everyone involved. And I think that we're getting to a point where we're a little bit older and a little bit more mature as well. And we're kind of like willing to risk things a little bit less, right? So although it's time consuming, and as like we were saying before, right? Like 2 hours per week may seem like a lot, particularly if you have money for the next 18 months in the bank. I would suggest to do this, right? Because then when it comes to actually having to raise the money, like everything is lined up and it's much more natural, and it's not a matter of leaving everything and like putting tension at your personal life, at the team. Like everyone was really stressed here at the office, right? Because they knew that it was like really important, and like we were super tough in terms of meeting the targets and the metrics, because we knew that we didn't have any space for not getting there, right? Because if you're like at the point of like talking to VCs and everything is condensed in like 2 months, if you're off 1 month, like there's no room for you to do anything, right? Like they're just gonna feel that you're not gonna be able to keep their credibility, and then like they're gonna back off. So yeah, I would definitely say like wait a little bit less till it was like the burning moment for us to raise the money and prepare with a little bit of time. I personally made myself like a promise after going bankrupt like the previous time, that I would try to never have like less than 6 to 9 months worth of money in the bank account. I know that this is super challenging, but like I've gone through a lot of pain and hell due to that. So I'm kind of like really obsessed about having visibility with a lot of time.
Thank you so much, Nico. So thank you, guys. We will pass it now to Helen and Anders and Hege first. And and we will be back at the end for potential additional questions. Thanks so much, Nico.
Thank you so much, Nico and David. Loads of very insightful information there. And we'll bring you back, as I mentioned, for some questions after. But now I'm very delighted to be joined by Helen and Anders. I'm just doing my production skills here. Great to have you both with us. Thank you so much. And we know that you also have been working closely together, just like Nico and David. Hopefully we'll get this into a good conversation. But just to start us off, I'd like you to both give an introduction of yourself and your company. So why don't we start with you, Helen?
All right, great to be here. Nice to meet you, everyone. I'm Helen Agering from Spintop Ventures, so I'm a partner there. And Spintop is a leading Nordic early stage VC, investing in basically software-powered tech companies with a positive sustainability impact. So that's us.
Excellent. Then moving on to Anders.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Anders. I'm one of the two co-founders of Keenious. So Keenious is a startup that tries to help academics find research articles to what they're working on, and we do that through recommendations. We've heard that we were bit early in our venture because people didn't have the belief in AI back in 2018 or so. Yeah, we're scaling it now, and our background was that we basically both were students ourselves that encountered the issue of when we wrote our theses, it was hard to find relevant papers for them. So we tried to solve this as students, and then we figured out that there's something called startups, and you can find funding and give your solution to more other people. So yeah, that's our background.
Sounds great. Thanks, Anders. And staying with you, obviously, Keenious, you did recently close a 1.3 million euro round led by Spintop, of course. Could you share a little bit about your story on preparing for the round, like from making the decision to actually go for the VC funding? How did you decide on how much, reaching out to investors, just a little bit on the journey? And then we'll obviously pull Helen in as well to talk about it from their side and get the conversation going.
Yeah, so trying to keep it a bit high level first, our preparations already started in our pre-seed round or angel round, where basically we used the time to also reach out to seed investors to hear, what do they expect? Where do we need to be in a 2 years time from our angel round to be able to raise money from them? So already there we had some metrics, we had some indications of where we had to be. Then we ended up having to raise a bit before we met all those metrics. And in preparing for that, we basically made use of these angel investors to be able to get some warm introductions to investors. And in addition, we did some what you call accelerators, I guess, where basically the goal was to help people raise funding, how to pitch, how to do that. And yeah, then it was more about mapping out. I have some points on how we could have done things differently, but yeah, mapping out the ecosystem, seeing who was actively investing at our deal size was crucial to be able to have or spend time with those actually of interest for us.
Sounds good. We can probably come back to some of the challenges and how things could have been differently, because it's obviously a lot of learning in that as well. But moving on to Helen and the other side of things, if you can share a little bit about your process. I know there's probably not a typical investment process, but I'm sure there are a few things that you follow that could be helpful, and on the deal sourcing, on the discussions, on the conviction. If you can share a little bit on how you work on that at Spintop.
Yeah, of course, I'd be happy to. So we have an investment team about of 8 people, and we take a closer look at more than 1,000 companies each year, and then invest in about 10 of them. So there's of course a funnel of getting deeper and deeper into analysis. But if something stands out to us, we would bring that to the weekly kind of investment committee meeting as a screening case, and that is quite a shallow analysis being made at that time, no real decisions being made, but you get a lot of input from your colleagues, and they will tell you if they've seen something similar, if they see any challenges or something that would make them not want to spend time on this, basically, going forward. And you get a sense of, is this worth pursuing or not? And next up, if you get that sense that, okay, but this might be actually something that could make the cut, you would go deeper into different analysis. So we have a Tollgate 1 analysis being made, and then Tollgate 2, etc. And during that analysis, we of course dig deeper into every single aspect of the company. For example, with Keenious, I did a lot of customer interviews, customer calls, and the rest of the team also got a chance to meet up with the founders and the startup team and ask questions directly to them. And if all that goes well, so go through these toll gates at the investment committee, you would end up with a yes, but that is of course depending on typically it would be a tech and legal due diligence left and some paperwork. Yeah. But I think that the customer calls in this regard was quite important for us.
Excellent, thank you. And just a little bit more on that relation, like Anders, how did you sort of find Spintop? How did you reach out? How did the relationship start?
Yeah, so as mentioned, it actually started out with an intro from one of our angel investors that had, you know, good experiences with Spintop. And that was also, you know, a search of importance for us, because then we knew like, okay, this is someone we should handle with care and deal with properly. And yeah, as I alluded to, for us, we hadn't reached all of the metrics we had hoped for yet. And therefore, as most investors maybe do, a quantitative analysis, you know, look at the numbers as such. What we really wanted to happen with Spintop was that they did a qualitative, you know, decision, and as Helen mentioned, talk with our customers. And yeah, we were very happy. We had 2 investors talking with our customers, and it was so nice to hear. So our customers are usually library directors, and it was so nice to hear after the conversation they had with Helen that they were like, yeah, I would really want to work with her. So if, you know, if they were the ones choosing, like, go ahead. And then also we you know, having heard that, we also then spoke with some of their portfolio companies. We actually didn't ask for any referrals. We simply just reached out to people that, you know, we knew were solid. And yeah, the feedback were such that we were very excited about spending time and working through the case together with Spintop, so that they had the proper understanding of what we were all about.
Excellent. Thanks for that. And obviously we know that all went well and the round is closed. So a little bit more, Anders, on like what's the next step when you secure the funding? How do you kind of do the next steps? How do you decide on how to sort of spend your cash? What's the next priorities?
Yeah. So for us, you know, we hadn't set up a board at that point. It was just the 2 founders. So for us, the priority was to, you know, really align on the next steps, and then especially the next 2 years. And so that's something we've been working on lately, even as of last week. So now the priority for us going forward is to build up the evidence for the impact of what our solution gives, and then also scale up the commercial side, and especially then the sales team, because now we are at the point where we know our solution works, we know it has a good effect, so let's document it and let's scale it so more people can make use of it.
Excellent. Thanks, Anders. And then over to Helen, a little bit on the same side, but how closely do you tend to work with the portfolio company as soon as the investment is made? Do you follow up very closely?
Quite close, actually. I mean, we always take an active board member role. That is one thing, but we usually spend quite a lot of time supporting our portfolio companies in between those meetings. Sometimes that means making introductions to potential recruits or experts outside of Spintop. But in the partner group at Spintop, we all have our specific expertise from operating roles before joining the fund. So we usually kind of take turns working with the team depending on what is the current most challenging topic that they work with right now. So we did the Keenious investment in March, and I think since then we spent about 5 full days together, not counting the board meetings or board strategy days, 4 or 5 days maybe. And the major focus now have been on go-to-market. And we have learned over the years that the time we spent early on supporting new investments really has a great ROI, but it's also good for building that relationship, because you're going to need it when you work together throughout the years, because fast-paced startup journeys is somewhat of a roller coaster ride. So it's good if you have if you have that trust.
Great, thanks, Helen. I see there's a question in the chat on importance for VC when examining startups. I think I'll wait with that till we bring David and Nico back in, because then I'm sure David's got something to share alongside you, Helen. So for Anders, as a finishing, you did touch on it, but anything you'd do differently? Any advice on what worked and what didn't?
Yeah, no, I said be a bit more data-driven in our outreach. We actually ended up spending time with funds that were not actively investing anymore, but was about to set up a new fund, and knowing who was actively investing at your size would have helped out a lot. Then also, as Nico mentioned, like going to these investor meetups or events where you can meet investors and get the first initial interaction, I think would also have helped us out. We were doing most of our fundraising over video, to be fair. And the last one is basically how, when we started out with our fundraise, we we wanted to talk with investors just to tell them this is who we are. Now, if you just wait a few months, we are about to close many deals because it's the end of the year or it's the end of the academic year, right? But they were like, oh, that's super cool, let's have a meeting. And if we only had been like, no, actually, let's wait 3 months and then we'll show you, then we have more data and so on. I think the conversations with them also would have gone much better. So basically knowing and being confident in where you have to be before all these conversations go. So that's definitely something we would have done differently for the next round.
That's great advice, Anders. Thank you so much. I think I'm going to bring back on David and also Nico. That's the spotlight. But for this question from Wojnicki, sorry for the pronunciation there, but on the importance for VC when examining startups, product, business model, financials, technology, founders, anything else? I guess that goes to both David and Helen.
Helen, do you want to take it? Yeah.
Yeah, I can start. I mean, we are looking, of course, at the sum of it all and not using a checkbox list. But in this regard, with the Keenious, I can actually share what the most important factors were when we made the decision, if that helps. So first of all, the team made a super good impression. They were easy to work with, and they were obviously clearly obsessed with solving the customer challenges, which is always a good sign, because that isn't something you can teach someone to do. That just comes from within. They also managed to find and to get on board very experienced advisors early on and listen to their advice, which was a good sign as well. And also being very transparent and honest with both strengths and weaknesses. And this is something I want to emphasize, because of course you want to present yourself and the company and the product in a good way, but they didn't try to convince us of anything that wasn't true. Instead, they pointed out potential problems themselves and creating a lot of trust that way. But going through the investment committee meetings, I would say for us it was 5 different things. It was they addressed a well-known large and global problem within academic research with a unique solution. And they had a very strong but very early commercial proof. So they were winning kind of lighthouse customers on a global market. They tapped into this large market within higher education, which is great. And they found kind of an efficient and suitable initial outbound go-to-market strategy. So they found a way of generating leads and closing them. And that was a strong proof. And finally, I mean, at the end, it comes down to, do we think that this is a company that has the potential to deliver the kind of returns that we are looking for as a VC fund? And is the timing right? And we believe it was. So that was our...
Cool. So look, I'll add to that. So, thanks for the good question and thanks for the insight here, Helen. Look, it depends. Oh gosh, I hate this answer, but it really depends on several things here. The first one is that the earlier the stage is, obviously, the more important it is. The founder, the team aspect is so much more important, right? Especially if we're talking about pre-seed, seed. So it's something that is always important. And the second aspect is really about, depending on the styles of the VCs. Personally, I don't care about product. I really don't. Honestly. Sorry for shocking some of you, but I really don't care. I care about the founders deeply. I care about the market. And I care about the distribution strategy, the go-to-market, or at least the theory on the go-to-market strategy. But that's me. That's my style. Some VCs deeply care about product, and it's fine. So it entirely depends on who you're talking to and the stage you're at. And there is no way for you to know that. For instance, there is one of our founders now that is starting to raise a round. And yesterday, he gave me a feedback on the first intros of first calls that he's having with VCs. And it told me that it's so interesting to see that some of the VCs are jumping right into the market, like super deep right into the market. They want to understand like the bottom-up calculations and the estimations and the rationale behind it, whatever. Some others, they don't care about that. They care about the vision. You know, like, talk to me about the vision. It's a bit more philosophical, but where you want to go. Talk to me about the team, about your background and how you met each other and so on. So you need to be prepared, and it depends entirely. But yeah, whenever you talk to me, product, you're not gonna excite me on the product side of things. So that's the honest answer here. Hope that helps.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. I'll dive into the chat for a few questions. I can see one from Roella. It's probably touching a bit on what you already mentioned, Anders, but in terms of your reputation and what time to get in front of the investors to start talking. Is it best to be strategic on whom, or just try and get in front of as many as possible and start building the relationships? Hope I got that right, Roella.
Yes,
Yeah.
you did. Thank you.
Yeah. So basically, in our case, I would say, and this will sound a bit harsh, but like if you're completely new to it, take some of your initial meetings with people that's, you know, somewhat relevant, but not the ideal profile. And that's simply because there's going to be so many questions asked you, and you're going to get so many things, you know, wrong the first time, that it's good practice, really. And then also, you know, when you get to know, because this game is all about getting rejections, and then, you know, it's a numbers game, right? Just ask candidly for proper feedback, and you know how to go on further. So in our case, we know, you know, we heard about Spintop already in February, when we, like the year in advance, when we knew we wanted to raise. But we waited until we had some more metrics, and until we, you know, had already been asked most questions once, so that we were properly prepared.
Can I add on to that question? Because this particular product is going to be outside of our current region. So it's really more for developing countries. And who I want to really target is going to be in those countries. Is it better to seek out funding and investors that are going to be local within that region? Or, I mean, yes.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks for good questions. I don't know if you want to add anything, Nico, on the sort of get in front of anyone, or I mean, you said a lot about being around and out and about. So
No,
touched on it already.
I fully agree with what Anders said, right? Like, it's good practice, and you should definitely not go for like the people that you are the most excited about, like in the first meeting, because it can go really, really, really wrong. And also, I would say that like sometimes it's a little bit about timing. If you think that there's a better way to get to these people through a referral or through someone putting you in touch, like do some research within your network first, in order to try to come up with people that maybe linking you directly with the person within the team that you should be speaking to, rather than just writing them yourself without any context, right? So I think that that's also important. And this is a conversation that I have with David a lot of times, but particularly with large VCs, like it really depends on the person that you're talking to within the fund, right? Like it's not the same talking to someone which is somehow more junior or has a little bit less context about the industry than if you're talking to someone a little bit more senior. So I think that is also important to be strategic about the person within the VC that you're going to be targeting to, right? Because you may have like completely different reactions, particularly if they don't have like a good machine internally in order to share information and eventually allow other people that would be more senior to spot opportunities that may be missed by someone that doesn't have that much context. But that's for large ones, I would say.
Thank you.
That's good. There's a question from Marcus on business angels. I know that you both also have mentioned a little bit, but if you did have business angels early, yes, but how did you leverage those business angels for the seed round introductions? What makes the difference? And I guess that's also for the investors, because you speak to the angels on the other end. So maybe you want to start on this, because you already mentioned a little bit that you had help with Spintop.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so to be honest, business angel has been so crucial for us. And again, we were students when we started this venture. We had no prior experience. We were actually from a very remote island far up north of Norway in the Arctic. So like there's no startups there or any ecosystem. So we had some business angels from the Oslo region. And the way we leveraged those is that when we were about to do our round, we basically said like, so this is, you know, what we have so far. This is our plan. This is sort of what we are going to pitch. And they gave us, you know, some feedback on that very crude draft of a, you know, investor pitch, basically. And then also, as mentioned, when we felt confident, because we didn't want referrals or warm introductions in the beginning, because again, then we were going to go out and experiment a bit and get some rejections. But when we felt we had a strong case, then we asked them kind of like, hey, so we had a session, you gave us feedback on this rough draft of our investor pitch. Now we're at this point, let us show it to you again. If you think this is great, please introduce us to someone that might be of interest for this. And that's actually how we ended up being introduced to Spintop. And yeah, that worked.
Thanks, Anders.
So in our case, we have a good example. Like we got in really early Hilario, which was the former chairman at KPMG, right? And because what we do is somehow talent, professional services, and outsourcing and linking people to companies and projects, like having someone coming from such a big player in this industry, and it was the first investment that he did after spending like 20 or 25 years at the firm, like gave us a lot of credibility when we were then talking to investors. And it was also super valuable in terms of experience, right? Because everything that we were doing at the beginning in terms of looking at deals and starting to target like larger customers, he did have amazing experience that he was willing to share with us with an incentive a little bit more important than just like willing to provide mentorship or whatnot to people that were starting, right? So he did have like an interest as well. So for us, that was super interesting. And that was something that we got through an investment forum, right? Like you have like these forums when you're starting where you get business angels to attend and then you pitch in front of a lot of people that you don't know anything about. And it's difficult, right? Like those ones are rough because you don't know your audience and you're basically just like opening up and sharing what you do. And the people asking questions, like you don't have any context. So it's not as if you're having a one-to-one conversation with a VC where you can prepare much more. So this guy, after seeing us for like 5 or 10 minutes, like he decided that he wanted to know more about the business. And then obviously we had like a bunch of meetings with him. And then eventually he decided to invest. But yeah, I would say that they're important, but it's important to pick them well, right? Like try to go for smart money, not just like someone that it's like, we did have some experience in the past with football players that were great in terms of providing cash, but maybe not as much in terms of providing experience and knowledge, right? And not in Adshakers, but like previous, right? And that was a little bit challenging, right? Because when you were trying to talk to them about investing a little bit further or like bringing the business to the next level, like they really didn't get what you were or didn't care as much, right? So yeah.
And just a quick note on the BA. So every time there is a business angel who reaches out to me for whatever, hey, I have this deal or invested in this company and they're raising now, whatever, it's always good signaling, even though I don't know him or her, right? So that's why it can be very powerful. And there is something that is interesting now that is happening. That is, we are doing a round for another company, and they have a bunch of high-level BAs, right? Like well-known BAs, well-respected in the Edtech and HR world. And these guys, they're able to open doors to very interesting VCs that are paying attention because, this guy is an investor there. I admire him. I respect him for what he's done, for what he has done, or for his built or whatever. So yes, I'll have a close look. And yeah, so I'm discovering now this interesting relationship and dynamic that some of the founders are leveraging. So yes, BAs are very important and can be a good way to unlock doors, especially scouts. You know, like whenever you have like these scouts from funds, right? It could be Sequoia scouts, could be whatever scouts. These are small BAs. They invest 10K, 15K, and yeah, they can help with signaling and opening doors.
Thanks, David. I'm aware that we are running out of time. I do still want to do, like, for those who can stay, just a few words wrap up on like your best top advice to founders out there fundraising at the moment from all of you to finish this off in the best way.
You gotta go. Thank you so much. Speak soon. Bye. Bye.
Thanks, Nico.
Thank you, guys.
So
Thank you for
quick advice.
Oh, sorry. What was that? Sorry.
It's just a quick advice at the end for founders
quick
out
advice.
there
I'm sorry.
fundraising.
I didn't get that.
Sorry.
Okay, so let me go here. This is basic, but it's just like you really need to understand why you're raising. Because raising is not just like, oh yeah, this is great. I want to raise $1 million or $2 million or whatever. It's just like, if you go down the VC route, it's all right. But it's just like, it's a different route than being a bootstrapper and building an amazing company on your own and getting to a few millions in revenue, in traction or whatever. And as Helen said earlier, we are investors, so there is we look for big outcomes, right? So this is the advice here, really understanding like there are two different routes. not one that is better than the other, that is just different route. If you go down the VC route, you want to build something big here, right? Trying to get to 50, 100 million in revenues within the next 7, 8, 9 years, 10 years, whatever. But this is really important, and not like, hey, I'm going to raise $1 million and then I'm going to do 2 million in revenue and I'm going to be happy. No, this doesn't work, and VCs will put a lot of pressure on you guys, and it's not worth it because there will be a misalignment. So anyway, so that's the big piece of advice, I guess.
Thanks, David. I can see Helen nodding.
Yeah, I fully agree. And if I would add something, try to get in contact or understand or buy, VC Investing for Dummies book or something to understand what is the process on the other end. Because you can make the life of the investor quite easy if you understand what are they actually looking for. You can't fit into something that is not you, but if you understand like what are they actually, what do they want to see in terms of what kind of data, what makes you stand out, etc., and be specific on that early on, it will make you stand out, because we get a lot of emails and our inbox is always full. So if you can be specific, that is a great way to stand out.
Great, thanks, Helen. And Anders, to finish off from a top advice from a founder who's done it. Oh, you're on mute.
Typical. So basically, it's just about remembering what you are, what you're working towards, being able to share that story in a convicting way. And lastly, remember that this is a numbers game. You're gonna get so many rejections, but learn from them and then find someone you can align properly with.
Wonderful. Great last words. Thank you all panel speakers, and thank you everyone for joining and listening. That's the penultimate session for the festival. We have one more session this afternoon on customer success. So if you can, please join us for that same link, 3 o'clock UK time, 4 o'clock Europe time. Thanks again, everyone. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.